Hello guys, welcome back to my channel What If World. I'm sorry for a late upload. I've just not been feeling the best recently, but I'm decent now. So we're going to be going over part 3 of What If Deku and a nuclear explosion quirk. Okay, so where we left off, Deku was stopped by Ida, and Ida thought he was going to ruin Uraraka's chances of getting into the school, and Deku was annoyed and shrugged it off. And then President Mike shouted, "Okay, go!" Okay, back where we are. Well, back to the story. So, as soon as President Mike shouts that, Deku lets off a big, big explosion, and he goes flying straight down faster than Ida can see, and just instantly destroys 3 robots because of his powerful explosions. He's going around constantly exploding robots, racking up points. Now, when the 0 pointer comes, he does the same thing as Bakugo and just decides to take on all these smaller robots while the 0 pointer is scaring everyone off. While he's destroying one and seeing the people running, he decides to start moving out the way and going behind it. Then he hears a scream, and he knows exactly who that is as soon as he hears it. It's Momo. Immediately he turns around and runs directly to Momo, making explosions, sending him up towards the robot's face, and then letting out a big scream, yells, "Meteor impact!" And a massive explosion comes barreling out, completely destroying the 0 pointer's head, and making it fall back onto a couple of the robots, getting other points. When he lands, he starts using explosions to slow down his descent, so he won't splat on the floor. Once he's on the floor, he quickly pulls the rubble off of Momo and helps her to recovery girl. Momo says thank you and hugs him, and then he tries to go off to get another point, and then President Mike yells, "Okay, time's up!" He's like, "Oh, I could have got a couple more." Deku says, "I could have got more points. And I hope I've got enough points to get in." He heads home with Bakugo. Walking home with Bakugo, and they split up. And he gets home. He tells his mum that he thought he did well. But yeah, he told Mitsuki that he thought he did well. His mum and dad, they did well, and Bakugo said, "Well, I got 75 points. How about you?" And Deku says, "Well, I can't really remember, but I think I got more than you." Bakugo gets angry and says, "Yeah, right." A week later, both Bakugo and Deku's letters come, and they're so happy because they both got in. But Bakugo's a bit angry because Deku beat him, but he kind of knew that was going to happen. Later that day, Deku, Momo, and Bakugo all decided to meet up and celebrate that they got into UA. The next day, they're all getting ready and head off. They meet up halfway from the school, where they usually meet up, and head to school. They're chatting the whole way until they actually arrive at the school. They all head in, but they are completely lost. The school's way too big. They have no clue where their classroom is. All they know is that they're all in the same classroom. They're excited about that, but still cannot find the room. They all think they're going to be late when eventually they find the 1A classroom. All three of them say, the door is huge. What kind of monsters come in this school? And all three of them enter, start talking, and they see, because Bakugo wasn't there either, Ida was actually talking to Tokuyami, who was sitting on top of the desk, instead of Bakugo, who had his legs on the desk. And was saying, you can't, Ida was shouting, you can't disrespect our school property like that. I can't believe it. Get your feet up, get off the desk, you cretin. And Tokuyami just ignores him and walks off. When they come in, and Ida immediately runs over to Deku and says, hello, I'm Tenya Ida, and I'm incredibly sorry for how rude I was. I have accepted that you are a superior student, and you knew about the rescue points when I didn't. Immediately, Deku brushes off, saying, well, no, I didn't know about them either. I just saved someone because they needed help. Momo, knowing he's talking about her, starts blushing, but then walks away. Then Uraraka walks in, and Deku says hello because he didn't get to say hello to her before. Then when Deku goes to sit down, he noticed what looked like a caterpillar on the floor, a huge one at that. Then realizes that it's a man in a sleeping bag, sitting outside or lying down outside the classroom. He's thinking, is that our teacher? He looks a bit tired. He goes to sit down and wait for the teacher to come in. Eventually, Aizawa comes in saying, it took you ages to be quiet. We need to work on that. He then hands out UAP uniforms and says we need everyone go outside. We're having a Quirk assessment test. A couple of the students say, what about orientation? And Aizawa says, we don't have time for silly silly things, something as silly as orientation. If you want to be heroes, we need to do whatever we need to get you trained up now. They all agree and go get changed. Because Deku worked on his body a lot to handle his massive explosions, he's quite ripped. And Kirishima says, hey, how did you get... You must have a great workout routine if you're that buff. And Deku just shaked off and said, yeah. They all walk outside, and because Deku got first in the entrance exam, Aizawa gives Deku the ball and says, because you were first, you're going to throw this ball as far as you can using your quirk. Deku gets explosions ready, tosses the ball a little bit into the air, and then lets off a massive explosion, sending the ball flying, getting 1,500 meters. He didn't use a max power explosion because they still hurt his arms. He used about half of his power. Everyone was amazed by how much raw power Deku had, and then it was Bakugo's turn. Because he was training a lot more with Deku, he got 953. But no one was really excited about Bakugo's throw because of how Deku got how Deku got so much further with the same quirk. Bakugo gets angry, but he knows that he shouldn't try to go up against Deku because it's just not going to work. Okay. It's not going to work. So then they start the other tests, and Deku gets second out of everyone because his quirk is not a one what can help him with everything, but he still does quite good. Straight after Momo because of all her training, and she had a very resourceful Quirk. Then, well, after that, everyone heads home, and Deku and Bakugo split off because Deku needs to go somewhere, but he's actually going to meet up with Momo. She says she wanted to meet him on the beach because she had something to tell him, and well, Deku, well, yeah, I'm you know where this is going. It's going to be a Deku x Momo ship, but Deku heads off down to the beach and gets there before Momo, and he kind of sits behind. He sits on the stairs leading down to the beach, and just waits, watching the sunset. Eventually someone covers his eyes and says, "Guess who?" Deku immediately knows who it is. It says Momo. She says, "Oh, how did you know?" It was kind of easy. She says, and then he answers, "So why did you want us to meet her?" She goes in front of Deku and says, "Well, actually, I have something to ask you." She says, "Izuku." She starts stuttering and then said, "Well, can you Izuku, can you go out with me?" And Deku's kind of shocked, but raises his head and says, yeah, because I like you too." After that, they both head home, and, well, actually, yeah, Momo goes home with Deku, and they say, and ask Bakugo, well, they all go, Bakugo, when they get back, Bakugo asks, "Why is Momo here?" And they said, "Well, we're hanging out, do you want to join us?" And after that, they go into Deku's room and start watching movies until it's night and Momo has to go. Deku sees her off, and then they go to sleep, waiting for the next day. Yeah. The next day they arrive at UA, all three of them together, and they were talking, and Deku and Momo decided not to tell anyone about what happened yesterday until they're ready. So the day goes normal until it's the last lesson of the day, Hero Basics, and they're so excited because everyone knows about All Might being a new teacher there, and they know that he must have been the one he's the one who's going to have to do it. Eventually they hear running down the hallway, and the door slams open saying, "I am here, coming through the door like a hero." And everyone starts cheering because All Might arrived in his Silver Age costume, what Shuyu Asui points out. He says today's topic of training will be battle training. Bakugo immediately stands up and says, "Yes! Yeah, battle training!" And everyone else is excited. All Might presses a button and the wall starts opening up, revealing suitcases. He says, "Heroes have to have style, so here's yours." Actually, that was kind of bad, wasn't it? But okay, whatever. They all get into their costumes and head out. Deku actually, all the costumes you see on the screen right now, these are actually the costumes what they're going to be around. So Deku's going to have more of a Bakugo kind of costume, because, well, with smaller gauntlets, what only used to store its sweat and not shoot it out, but use it as more of like a grenade cartridge thing, so he can put it in grenades. It doesn't have the bigger explosion kind of it doesn't have like the big pin thing at the top. It is still, and it's in Deku's colours. Bakugo, because he's got one for all, and he thinks that one for all is his only way of getting close to beating Deku, he designs a costume more like Deku's costume, more mobile, and it's gonna help him with arm braces to help him use more power. So the two here, this is going to be more like Deku's costume, but in his own colours there, because of the smaller gauntlets and stuff like that. But Bakugo chooses a more Deku-like costume with his colours, and just pretend that the one with Deku and So after that, the teams are announced, and I am going to keep the teams the same as Deku and Uraraka versus Bakugo, and actually, no. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna change, but it's not gonna be Bakugo. It's going to be Ida and Bakugo for a later date, let's say. So Ojiro, the tail guy. So Deku and Uraraka actually get chosen to be villains in this. So when they get inside, Deku, using some of his smarts, decides to try to. Well, he tells Uraraka to use her quirk on certain items and float them above the door, and then they'll wait there. They wait for Ojiro and Ida to come through. Ida tries to zoom through, and then he gets immediately hit by a big explosion because Deku was hiding behind the door. He gets hit by explosion, sent into a wall, and then Ojiro tries to come in, and Uraraka drops all the rubble and stuff onto Ojiro, hitting him and hurting him. Deku immediately kicks Ojiro down and tries to go for another kick, and then gets blocked by Ida, who got back up. Ida then uses his Reciprocal Burst at an earlier stage in this fight because he needs to. He uses Reciprocal Burst, and blasts. He goes flying towards Deku and kicks him. Deku just able to block it, but it hurts his arms. He kind of has a little fracture in his arms because of how much power came from that kick. He gets sent into a wall, and tries to get up. He tries to dodge out the way because Ojiro was hitting him with a tail. He grabs onto the tail, starts exploding, and does an explosion throw, and throws Ojiro out into a wall, cracking it and knocking Ojiro out. He then goes on to help. He then goes on to help Uraraka by saving her from getting hit by Ida. Because his Reciprocal Burst has run out, he can only use normal kicks now. His kicks are slow enough for Deku to be able to grab and throw slam onto the ground and use the explosion, knocking him out, then winning the exercise. Uraraka and Deku are happy, and they head back to the waiting room, and then All Might asks Momo to say who the MVP was. She says Deku because of his good tactics and great fighting style, and then the matches go on. After the training, everyone heads home. But before that, Aizawa tells everyone that there's going to be a training, or they're going to do rescue training at the USJ. They all head home, and Momo actually goes back to Deku's house, and they hang out for a bit. Bakugo was in his room and didn't even know that Momo was there, and eventually they were just watching movies until Deku says, "Oh, okay, Momo, you need to go now." She says, "Oh, come on, I want to stay longer." And he lets her. He says, "Come on, okay, another hour." And then by the time the hour is over, Momo's already fell asleep next to Deku on the couch. He just picks her up, puts her in his bed, and then sleeps on the sofa until morning. When she wakes up, she realizes where she is, and she starts getting nervous. But then realizes that Deku's still on the couch, and it's like, oh, okay. She wakes him up and says, "We need to go. Come on, get up. We need to go." They get ready and go to school. Deku and Momo sneak out because they don't want Bakugo to know. They sneak out and then meet up. Then they pretend to. Momo sneaks out and then Bakugo and Deku pretend to. Well, Deku. They all meet up after. God's sake. Momo. Leaves and they meet up and go to school. When they get to school, the teacher says that they need to get ready to go on the trip to the USJ and start loading everyone to the bus. Because Deku's more confident, he decides to help everyone and tells them where to go and where to sit and stuff. When they get there, they enter the room, and they enter the USJ. Scene 13. Uruka geeks out about seeing one of her favorite heroes, the rescue hero 13, and then Kirishima shouts, "Wow, they've even got fake villains here. That's cool." Aizawa and Deku immediately turn around saying, "Fake villains?" Then Aizawa shouts, "There's no fake villains. Okay, 13, protect the students." Aizawa was about to jump down to go fight the villains, and then he went off running after Aizawa, starting beating the villains. He did quite well against them because of all his training with his quirk and martial arts. He was beating them up, destroying most of them, and completely immobilizing the rest. Then he starts running over towards Shigaraki, but Kurogiri teleports him and everyone else away to different areas to get taken down by villains. He ends up in a water zone. And a shark person tries to eat him. Sue saves him and chucks him onto the boat along with Mineta. They thank Suyu and then start thinking of how they're going to get back to land. Deku comes up with a plan. He tells Suyu to throw him into the middle of the water. She does. As soon as he gets near the water, he lets off a big explosion. He separating the water and creating a big wave, sucking everyone in. And then Mineta starts throwing these sticky balls and sticks them together inside the water. They get onto the land and Deku sees Aizawa getting beaten up and bloodied by the Nomu. He immediately lets off explosions going directly towards the Nomu and blasted off him. And grabs Aizawa and chucks him over to Suyu and Mineta, saying, "You need to take him. We need to get him out of here now." Then Shigaraki tries to grab onto Asui before she leaves. Deku runs over and stops, and because he couldn't make it, he fills one of his grenade cartridges with his sweat and throws it behind Shigaraki, exploding him and hurting him. He then stops and lets Asui get away because he couldn't move. Shigaraki gets up and tells the Nomu to kill the boy, killing Deku. It tries to kill Deku, running over and tries to punch him. Deku just was able to dodge and sends a big explosion, blasting the arm off of the Nomu. He goes around the back and puts his hands on the back of the Nomu, completely blasting a hole through the middle of it. Then he just keeps like exploding. Once he stops, you just see the Nomu completely regenerate. The Nomu grabs onto Deku and throws him and punches him. Deku then tries to get back up, but he just can't move. Then, all of a sudden, they hear the door open and the man yell, "Ha! Don't worry, students. You know why? Because I am here." Everyone looks over to see All Might standing there with an angry face, with no smile. He rips off his tie and says, "Don't hurt my students anymore." Okay, guys, that's where the video ends off. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.